Hello everyone, and welcome back to our Get Started Fast with Titler Pro for Avid Media Composer tutorial series. My name is Kevin P. McAuliffe, and in this lesson, we're going to talk specifically about creating the title look that you see in front of you right now. Now, in many cases, this would be considered a complex layout and something that you might go to an application like Photoshop to create. But in this lesson, I'm going to show you how simple it is to actually create this using your alignment tools and some basic character editing inside of Titler Pro. Okay, let's keep our introduction short and let's just get into Media Composer and let's get started. Okay, so let's Command and Tab into Avid Media Composer, obviously an Alt and Tab for all my Windows friends out there, and you can see the basic text layout that we've created. Now again, a lot of people might think that this is a complex, layout that we might need to create in something like Photoshop, but we don't need to do any of that. This is actually a very standard and straightforward title that we can create very simply inside of Titler Pro. So let's do that. What I'm going to do first of all is I'm just going to remove the effect, and I'm going to add a couple new edits into my timeline to mark the area that we're going to want to have that super appear, and I'm going to hit Command and 8 on the Mac, Control and 8 on Windows. Let's scroll down to the NewBlue Titler Pro 2.5 title, and now of course if you are on a perpetual license, you're going to be scrolling down to NewBlue Titler Pro 2.0, so keep that in mind if you are a perpetual license user. Okay, so once I have the title in my timeline, of course we're going to be greeted by the enter text, the basic title layout that's created when we add a new title. What I'm going to do is, of course, we can get into the effect one of two ways. We can head into effects mode, or we can simply right click and say add edit title. Of course, the quick edit window will appear. And what we're going to want to do is simply come straight into the title designer. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is actually just delete this text, the standard text that we have there. And I'm going to talk very basically in this tutorial about creating shapes. Now I'm going to get more specifically into shapes in our next lesson, but I do want to create a basic shape, that divider line that goes right down the middle as the first element that we're going to want to add. So let's do that. To create a new shape is very simple. I'm simply going to navigate over to the Add Shape dropdown. I'm going to click on it, and what we want to do is to create a new rectangle. Once I have the rectangle created, all I'm going to do is simply select it. I'm going to stretch it out to be about roughly where I'm going to want it to be. Now what's important to keep in mind is that as I'm doing that, I'm just going to undo what I just did. Over here in the object window, you're going to notice that we do have access to the position parameters, rotation parameters, scale, and of course opacity, radius, and skew. Now you'll see that a lot of the stuff that I'm doing right here is actually just grabbing and dragging the bounding boxes to create the type of shape that we want. But you'll see that as I'm grabbing and dragging, we actually have the scale parameter updating as I'm doing that. Now of course, as I grab the element and I move it, it's going to adjust the X and Y position. What's also very cool, you're going to notice that we have a couple of icons over here, one of which being two arrows that look like they're going in a circle, and the other one looking a little bit like a 3D circle or a sphere. Now what's going to happen is that if I grab that sort of two circles rotating around each other and I grab it and drag it, you're going to notice that this is actually a rotation adjustment. And what's very cool about that other icon, if I just undo what I just did here, is that if I click on it, you're going to notice a circle has appeared around the shape. What this actually does is let me rotate the element in 3D space. Now I'm jumping a little bit ahead, a couple lessons ahead here. We're going to talk more about 3D in an upcoming lesson. But since I was getting in and talking about the parameters over here in the Object tab, and rotation is one of them, I did want to show you what the difference was between the two of them. Okay, now most of the stuff I'm going to do here is just grab it and drag it. Let's just position this sort of about there. Now, you'll see that I only can drag in so much here, and you'll see that over here in the Object panel, the scale is set to be 0.5. I actually want that to be a little bit less than that. Let's set this to be about 0.2 probably. Now what I want to do next is I want to position this line perfectly in the center of the screen. Now many people just sort of drag and be like, I think that's pretty close, but we want it to be exactly in the middle horizontally of the screen. So how do we go about doing that? Well, it's actually very easy. With the object selected, all I'm going to do is simply navigate up to alignment. I'm going to come down to align to frame, and I'm simply going to select center in frame horizontally. The shortcut, Shift Command and C, Shift Control and C for all my Windows friends out there. And let's just position this element in the center of the screen. Now, of course, In this case, I might want it to be a little bit off-center, only because I've got the line of the road going sort of a little bit off-center. So if I position this, now remember, what's important to keep in mind is we want to make sure that the position widget comes up, because if it doesn't, I'm not adjusting the position, I'm going to adjust the scale. So once I have the position widget here, I can just move this over. And of course, as I'm dragging, maybe I bring it up a little bit. Oh, no problem. I want to get this centered horizontally, or pardon me, vertically. All I have to do is head right back up to align to frame. You'll see center and frame vertically, Command Shift and V, Control Shift and V for all my Windows friends out there. And there we go. Now I'm just going to leave this right dead in the middle of the screen. You'll see that obviously it varies a little bit as we go, but it's pretty darn close. Okay. So let's create some basic text. What I'm going to do is simply add a new paragraph. I'm going to position this paragraph up here in the upper left-hand corner. Now what I've done is I've just created a text document here just so I can get my text here exactly the way that we want it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the first line. Let's just paste it in here. Okay, I'm just going to hit paste. I'm going to select a font. Let's come in here. Let's come down to the H's, and I'm just going to pick Harvest. I really like this font here. Again, I can simply adjust the size of the font by grabbing and dragging it down like such. Let's position it here over at the left. Now, what's very cool as well is you'll notice that as I drag over towards the Save Title, Save Picture, the title actually snaps right to those saves, which is very handy to have. So I'm going to snap that right to save right there. Very cool. Okay, and this is going to be the Jeep Wrangler. So let's again, new paragraph. Again, we're going to come right over here. I'll just type in Wrangler. Let's make sure we're in uppercase here, W-R-A-N-G-L-E-R. Okay, and I'm going to select Wrangler. Again, we're going to go back to Harvest here. Harvest, there we go. And maybe we'll make it just a little bit bigger here. Okay, and I'm going to position it again right over here on the left. Now let's just bring down my 2014 Jeep. Now what's also very cool, you'll notice that when I had the text selected, or actually it was the shape selected, and I navigated up to alignment, I came down align to frame, we had all of our options available to us. But the Align Objects option was all grayed out. Well, of course, Align Objects insinuates that I'm referring to more than one element. So let me give you a perfect example of where I would use something like this. How many times have you been in this situation where you want to take, let's just use the new 2014 Jeep, and you want it to center it perfectly, over top of Wrangler. So basically right where Wrangler's center point is, you want to take new 2014 Jeep and line it up right there. And you find yourself taking and dragging, and you're constantly doing that, and it's just a big mess because you never get it quite this, quite exact on, and you're constantly clicking up and down. Well, the easiest way to do it inside of Titler Pro is to simply, again, we're going to hold Command on the Mac, Control on Windows to select both items. What I'm going to do is head back up to Alignment, say Align Objects, and what I want to do is I want to align the centers of these two objects, and boom, the centers of these two objects are now perfectly aligned with each other. So if I was to select Wrangler, you'll see there's the center point. If I was to select new 2014 Jeep, you'll see the center points line up perfectly. So that's a great alignment trick that you can use all of the time to make sure that all of your text is aligned exactly as you need it to be. Okay, so what are we moving on to next? Let me just come back to my text document here. We're going to do our sale price. So let's do our sale price here. And again, what we're going to do, pretty much what we had done before. And I'm just going to create a new paragraph. Again, we're just going to position it right over here. And we're just going to copy this here, sale price, copy, paste, again, going back to Harvest, okay. And this is actually a good one, and I wanted to talk about this a little bit as well. Let's take our sale price text and bring it down a little bit, but what's important to keep in mind here is that what I actually want to do is I want to emphasize that the sale is going on right now. So what I want to do is make sale a little bit bigger than price. Well, believe it or not, it's really as simple as selecting just sale, because remember, before we had everything selected, we were just adjusting the size, no problem. Okay, but what I want to do is just adjust this text independently of price. Well, all I have to do, you'll notice that as I selected sale, a new internal bounding box has appeared. So believe it or not, all I now have to do is just adjust the size of sale. Now what I'm going to do here before I actually do that is just put a space in there, just so that we got a little bit of space between the two of them, kind of like that. And once I deselect, I can simply now grab the main bounding box, reposition this, and we actually have sale now bigger than price. And of course we could get in and adjust the position a little bit more, but this is a very cool way to get in and create, independent scales or independent text sizes inside of one text paragraph. Now, here's where this really comes into play. Let me just take this. I'm going to position it roughly about there, and the price is next. So let me take the price, 17,383. I'm just going to copy that. Okay, add paragraph. We'll just position it. Now, how many times, of course, do you do this in a situation where you're creating something like this? Again, I'll just go back to harvest. Okay, I'm going to take the text size. We're just going to bring it right up because this is obviously important. The first thing that's actually very important is I need to adjust the spacing in between these two letters, or the kerning in between these two letters. All I'm going to do, simply select the two letters I want to adjust the kerning in between. You'll see that I can come right up here and I can adjust it just like this. There we go. Okay, now I'm jumping by a value of 0.05 each time I do that. If I want to get in and be more specific, no problem. I could say, let's just, be very specific, 0.92 or maybe 0.94, just like such. But I think what I need to do here is just get a little bit closer together. I think 0.89 is not too bad. We're jumping by intervals of 0.05 every time we click up or down on the kerning there. Now what I want to do here is I want to take this $sign, I want to shrink it down, and then what I want to do, believe it or not, all again, right from within this paragraph, is simply grab its position and reposition it right there, just like such, again, inside that paragraph, so that we can now get the sale price looking exactly the way that we want. Okay, now I'm just going to adjust the position of all of these just a little bit up. I think I'll bring it over a little bit too. I know they're all aligned because they all snap to that title safe here. And let's just add our percentage in over here. Again, this is going to be very simple. We'll use a different font this time. Let's go to add paragraph. We're going to move this over here. We're going to go, it's of course 0% financing. So we'll go 0%. And we're going to use my favorite font. Nothing says in your face like impact. Take impact. We're going to scale it right up because 0% is important. And of course it's going to be 0%, and we'll use our alignment tools again. We're going to add a paragraph here. It's going to be 0% financing again. Okay, 0% financing. Let's go back to impact, just like such. Let's position financing again directly below 0%. I'm just going to adjust its size a little bit here. And of course, again, selecting both elements, we want to align them so that they're centered. So I'm going to head back up to alignment, align objects to their centers, just like such. And I think I'm even going to bring financing up just a little bit. Now, this next technique is one that once you see it, you're going to be using all the time. We're going to do our legal now. Okay, and our legal is going to go right down here at the bottom of our frame as it normally would. Again, we're going to add a new paragraph, but we're going to do something a little bit different this time. What we're going to do is we're going to navigate right up here to our text fit modes. I'm going to drop this down. You'll see that we have a few options in here. What I'm going to do is instead of the text fitting the box to the text, which basically means that as we type text, so if I come in here and I say, blah, 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 the box keeps getting bigger and bigger as we keep typing text. What we're going to do is do something a little bit different. I'm just going to create a new paragraph here again. And in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to define the area that I want this text to fit in. So to do that is very simple. All I'm going to do is navigate again right up here. We're going to come down and we're not going to fit the box to the text. We're going to fit the text to the box, just like such. Now, once I've done that, all I'm going to do is position the text. Now, again, we could come right back up to alignment. We could align this right into the frame, to the center horizontally, just like such. But of course, we're going to want this. Actually, you know what? In this case, it doesn't even really matter because the text is going to stretch all the way across the screen. It doesn't need to be lined up with our line. And what I'm going to do is as I grab the bounding box and drag it out, you're going to notice that the text doesn't get any bigger. It stays the exact same size. So what's going to happen now again is if I come back in here, you'll remember before when I typed text in and the bounding box just kept getting bigger and bigger, the text size didn't change, but we're in a little bit different situation here. Again, we're right up here, we're fitting the text to fit the box. So if I start typing, what's going to happen is that when the text gets to the edge of the box, it's going to get smaller and smaller and smaller because the text is fitting inside the box. So let's just again create a new paragraph. Again, exactly the same what we did before. I'm going to come right back up here. We're going to fit the text to box. We're going to stretch this out. Let's make sure we're grabbing the right thing here. There we go. Perfect. Just like such. And we're just going to center this up here. Align to frame. We're going to center horizontally. There we go. Very nice. I'm going to come back to my text document. I'm going to select my legal. I'm going to say copy. We're going to say hide. And I'm just simply going to paste all of this down. And you'll see that the text has been sized to fit inside this box. Now what's also very cool is that if I was to paste that text in again, you're going to notice the text gets even smaller, etc., because the text is going to do that so that it does fit inside of the bounding box that we have now created. Now what's important to keep in mind is that if I decided that at some point I wanted this text to be even smaller, how I would go about doing that is actually very simple. Most people think I would get in and adjust the text size. I'm not going to do that. I'm actually going to do it dynamically by simply grabbing the top of the bounding box and squashing the text down, because remember, it needs to fit inside this bounding box. So of course the size of the text is going to be adjusted to do that. So let's say I get down to about here, and I'm going to split this up into 2 lines. What I could do is just divide this again. Because this is now on 2 lines, it feels that it can make the text bigger, no problem. I can now shrink that down even more. And I think what I'm going to do is just bold this text a little bit, just to get it so it's a little bit more visible. And believe it or not, I'm actually done. All I'm going to do is simply select everything here. Let's just select all my elements here. Again, we're just going to hit Command, select my elements here, and we'll even select the shape in the middle here. And what I want to do is just simply add a shadow. Now we're going to get more into shadows in the next lesson, but what I'm going to do is simply head on over to the Style tab. I'm going to come over to the 2D dropdown and simply add a drop shadow just like such. And now every element inside of my canvas has a drop shadow, and I could save this text out now and be ready to drop it into my timeline. But of course, there is one last important thing that I do want to do before I do that. What I know is that with something like this, chances are, if you're doing this for one of the big car companies, you might be doing these commercials for every different model of car that they happen to be working on. So what you're going to want to do is save this out as a template. But here's the important thing. If I was to take this element, save it out to start using it as a template, I haven't, really named anything. I haven't defined what all of these different values represent. So once I get back into the quick edit window, it's going to be, I'm going to have to keep looking at what is in the contents of each box to figure out what I need to put into each, dialog box. But we can actually adjust that in here before we even do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to head to the first element that we created, the new 2014 Jeep. Well, technically it was the second element because the bar was the first element we created. I'm going to head back to the Object tab, and you're going to see right now that this element is called Text2. What I'm going to do is I'm going to call this Car Make and Model. Let's actually call this Car Make. Okay? And then what we'll do is we'll call Wrangler Car Model. Okay? We're just going to call sale price, which is fine. Well, what I'll do is I'll call it sale price do not alter. Okay, because we want to make sure that anybody that sits in behind us doesn't alter this. Okay, what we're going to do, of course, importantly, is the price. Okay, we've got our 0% financing, so we'll just call this percentage. Okay, and of course, we're going to call this financing. Now, what I'm going to do here is just come back to my sale price because I want to take that do not alter. I'm going to copy that, and we're just going to paste this down onto financing. And of course, last but certainly not least, legal. Okay. Now once I've done this, I'm simply going to close the Titler Pro interface. We will apply this to this title, and you'll see that it's going to cache the title because that's how I have it set up under my settings. Once it's done caching it here, it's going to take me back into Media Composer. All I'm going to do is simply launch the user interface, and you'll see that in the quick edit window now, right over here is all of the parameters that I put in inside of Titler Pro, so that I can easily get in, or really any editor can easily get in and say, oh, okay, well I know that here I need to put in the car make, the car model. Oh, I don't want to adjust the sale price word, which I know is right there. There's the price that I might want to adjust. So if I know that the new price of the new car, let's just say this is going to be the Jeep Cherokee. I'm not even sure if that's how you spell Cherokee, but it doesn't matter. And it's going to be $19,995. Okay, so once I've entered those values, you'll see that they literally get updated immediately. Now, the only thing that's important to keep in mind is that when I changed Wrangler here, The reason that it changed its position here is because of how I had the justification. So let me give you an example. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to come back into the title designer here, and I'm going to make sure that with this Wrangler word mark, that with it selected here, we're going to left justify it. So this way what's going to happen is when we put a new word in here, of course it's always going to start left justified. Let's simply close the title here. We'll just let it cache again, that's fine. Once it's done caching, it should take us back to Media Composer here. There we go, and let's just come back into the user interface. Now let's try that again here. Let's go Cherokee. Let's make sure we actually type this in capitals. Okay. Once we type in Cherokee, you'll see that now this time it kept it left justified so that everything stays lined up exactly as it needs to. Now, of course, the percentage might change. It might become, 1% or something like that. But really, this is how you can easily get in, set up your titles so that any editor can sit down and easily edit them with the snap of a finger. And you also saw how simple it is to get in and change things like your justifications, getting in and adjusting specific characters, and even getting in and setting bounding boxes for things like legal so that you can get in and get everything set up quickly and easily so that you have no downtime in your edits.